There's a responsibility as you're building a brand and as you're telling a story, specifically when you have a product that you're going to do one of those two things with, in or on your body.
What we did in our strategy is we pivoted away from stills and GIFs and recipe content and pivoted highly into highly educational UGC content. This retailer calls and says, hey, we want you in our stores. You're always going to take it. You also have to be in a position where you're ready to be in that retailer. Because if you jump off early and your velocity is not there, getting back into that retailer years later is significantly more difficult.
Where the role that AI is going to play.
You want to write content that is being discovered by AI and being understood by AI. It's only a matter of time before these ChatGPT starts advertising inside of ChatGPT.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to the Brilliant Commerce Podcast, where I get a chance to sit down with some of the brightest minds in commerce and unpack the secrets behind some of the industry's most iconic, or as I like to say, soon to be iconic brands. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Sam Davel, a key member of the growth team at Kosterina. Sam, welcome to the pod.
I appreciate you having me, Brian.
I asked you this in the sort of the warm up, but where am I catching you today?
Yeah, I'm in Manhattan in New York City. I live on the Upper West Side. Work mostly remote, about 90% remote. And luckily I have a pretty good setup here in our apartment.
Nice. Have you been in New York the entire career?
My entire marketing career, yeah. I moved up to New York right after getting out of the military in 2017. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life or really any idea. But I didn't want to go back home to Wisconsin and New York sounded good. And I actually got into marketing by doing a lot of freelance work while trying to act. Yeah, later on, the acting fell aside and found out that I was a much better marketer than I was an actor. So.
That's awesome. What do you think helped you more, or what helps you more today as a marketer? The military background or the time you spent trying to be an actor in New York?
Yeah, I think doing the work, the military background, 100% for sure, without a doubt. I think there's a level of real determination to figure out like what's going on and what's working and like really dive into it as opposed to just looking at the surface level metrics. Having worked at agencies, the acting experience has helped massively when talking with CMOs or with founders and being comfortable presenting, being comfortable having conversations like this.
Is that the sort of the storytelling component there? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to say it. I also just think like in the world of acting, you're constantly on camera and constantly kind of like the center of attention. And so like, you don't fear that anymore. And so that element of like, am I going to stumble over a word? Am I going to mess up a metric? You just don't care anymore when you're on calls. And it just is very personable, very real, which helps out.
Yeah. I mean, some of the best marketers that I know or that I've been fortunate enough to work with are great storytellers, and I think it's a good way to bring a team along or to bring an audience along. And I think I really appreciate the twinning that with the grit that I imagine you get from having that military experience. And I think from my point of view, we need more of that in the sort of the marketing world or the paid world. Sometimes there's this feeling that there's just one way of doing it, or there's a playbook. My experience has been that it does require grit and it does require curiosity to change things up as the landscape is quickly changing around us.
Yeah, I definitely agree. One of my biggest issues with a lot of agencies out there is this idea that it's just rinse and repeat. I think a lot of brands are working with agencies where they've done something that's worked with brand A and they just immediately apply it to brand B. And each brand, while there's similarities for sure, it is unique and deserves a unique strategy in order to grow. I
love that. Okay, so let's use that as a segue to, so I'm finding you today in New York. I'm finding you today running growth at Kosterina. Kosterina is a discovery for me. Seems like one of the hero products is an olive oil. Fun fact, one of my daughter's favorite things to do is to go olive oil tasting. We live in a part of the country where that's available to us. And so at least one weekend a month, we're driving around and we're doing this olive oil tasting. She has not tried yours, which I guess makes me a bad dad, and I will remedy that in short order. But can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about the brand and maybe what makes the products unique?
Yeah, absolutely. And also please share your address afterwards. I'd love to send you a bunch of product and get your daughter's thoughts on it.
Cool.
So
she will send
Kosterina,
them.
Yeah, please. Absolutely. So Kosterina is a premium Mediterranean brand. We specialize in extra virgin olive oil, very high quality extra virgin olive oil. It's early harvested. The olives produce less oil when they're early harvested, but it's a lot more flavorful. It has more polyphenols, which is antibiotics and stuff that help with like heart health, skin health, hair health. So we're a very premium brand, and we're really focused on this idea that better for you products you shouldn't have to sacrifice on. And really this idea of like, we don't want to sacrifice flavor. We don't want to sacrifice, like durability with smoke points and stuff along those lines with a better for you product that is, a little bit more expensive, of course, because it's a little bit more expensive to make, but really can be like a true pantry staple. So that's a little bit about Kosterina. They were founded late 2019. I've been on the team for about 18 months now, and we've grown pretty dramatically. So we do a lot of sales on D2C, but we're in Whole Foods, we're in Target, a handful of other retailers in the US.
That's awesome. I love this. I came from D2C as well. And it was a product that you wouldn't put in your body, but it was a product you would put on your body. And so we used to say like, there's a responsibility as you're building a brand and as you're telling a story, specifically when you have a product that you're going to do one of those two things with, in or on your body, to not sacrifice quality. So I'd just be curious how the approach to marketing or brand building or storytelling has evolved during your time there, and how important is that when you're trying to get eyeballs on your product versus maybe another olive oil that a consumer might be considering.
I think I came on at a really interesting point where they really hadn't had somebody that specialized in growth and had really grown brands beforehand. And really early on, one thing that we did in our strategy is we pivoted away from stills and gifts and recipe content and pivoted highly into highly educational UGC content, where we really inform users on channels that they're on for entertainment, like Meta, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc. Why they need high quality olive oil. What is the importance of that? What does that do for their health? What does that do for their meals? Why are olive oils differentiated? So we've really leaned into these educational UGC concepts, where our hope is that our consumer is informed when they come to our site and they know exactly what they're looking for. And then vice versa, since we are in retail, if they don't come to our site, when they go into the grocery store, they're starting to look for some of these things like single sourced, early harvested, some of these key terms that we really highlight in our UGC to make an informed decision on what they're buying. We kind of like to say internally, we'd like for them to buy our product, but at the end of the day, we just want more consumers buying high quality olive oil that's good for them. And if they're doing that, then we're probably growing as the category grows.
I mean, that's a fascinating point of view. So how do we educate the consumer that there is a better product out there, and whether obviously you want them to buy yours, but I think what I'm hearing is you feel like there's this responsibility to do that education, to bring some of these customers maybe up market, to be more to be more considerate when they're making a purchase, thinking about ultimately what they're putting in their body.
Exactly. And when I joined the team, I had no idea. I was going to the store and buying the cheapest possible olive oil that I saw on shelf, thinking all olive oils are the exact same. And not realizing that, when you are putting high quality olive oil in your body, one, you feel a lot better. There's been numerous studies about the reduced inflammation, skin health, nail health, hair health, etc. And B, you are putting a fat in your body that is relatively high in calories. A lot of people stay away from olive oil because of the calories, but really this idea of, 5 calories of something is different than 5 calories of something else. And
Yeah.
so if you're going to put those calories in your body, have it come from something that benefits you and is truly good for you so that you can get something out of it as opposed to just emptiness.
How do you measure that? I mean, not how do you measure the calories? How do you measure the effectiveness of that type of marketing message? I mean, you've got to decide between, I'm going to spend money to go and acquire this customer, or I'm going to spend money and put it into this brand campaign. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to just unpack that a little bit. How do you think about it? How do you go and advocate for that with the executives to say, listen, I'm going to go and spend all this money, and I'm not going to be able to directly attribute it to an order or to a customer, but it's important for the following reasons. Because I think we are getting back to this sort of like the golden age of marketing, where it was an awful lot more of this balance between brand and performance or targeting. Because those never used to exist. It was just like, I need to get eyeballs onto this thing, and I need to compel people to want to be friends with me, and to want to sort of to pick up what I'm putting down, I guess. So yeah, just be curious how you think about that strategically.
Yeah, we really like to think about things holistically. And so really kind of like our North Star metrics is an MER metric, a media efficiency ratio. So total revenue divided by total spend. That's really been our North Star metric since I came on, and one that leads a lot of our decision making. Obviously, we get into the nitty gritty, and we have our channel reported ROAS, we have our channel CACs, our channel CPAs, blended, et cetera. But that's really our North Star to understand where our marketing efforts are going. Are we successful? Are we not? And then, if we are successful, then let's dive into channel metrics. What are the channels telling us? Are we not successful? Let's dive into channel metrics. But that's kind of where things start is understanding that MER number and having one that we feel good about, having one that is potentially profitable. We kind of play with our goals a little bit. Are we looking to grow a little bit more? Then we're going to willing to accept a smaller MER number. Are we looking to be profitable? Then we're willing to, then we need to push for a higher MER number.
Is there a campaign that you ran that surprised you in one way or the other, like either positively affecting MER or negatively affecting? Be curious if so, like what the campaign was.
Yeah, actually, we early in 2025, we pushed heavily on Meta to discuss olive oil shots and the importance of taking an olive oil shot daily. And I kind of thought it was going to flop. I was like, I don't think consumers want to take daily olive oil shots. I don't want to. I've tried it. It's not for me. But let's see if there's something there. I'm not an expert in the olive oil field. I can be totally wrong on this. And that's something that I love about marketing is like, your biases are gone, lean into the data. So we did that. And we found out that, there was a solid 2 week to 1 month period after Christmas, kind of in the early January phase that, the new year, new me phase, as a lot of brands like to call it, where it was really successful. And we saw our Meta numbers climb, our CACs decrease holistically. It was really successful. It kind of burnt out on the middle half of Q1 towards the back half. But early in January, it was really successful. And that's something that really kind of shocked me and surprised me there.
Does that become something that is annual now? Like, do you think about January as that moment where as a wellness brand, that's sort of your time to shine. So does that become sort of an evergreen campaign?
Yeah, it definitely will this year in early 2026. I knew that January was going to be a big time for us no matter what. Obviously, being a better for you brand. I just didn't necessarily think that this idea of the olive oil shot and that's the way that we're messaging our olive oil and the message that we want consumers to hear was going to have the impact that it did. But absolutely, it will be a part of our early January strategy moving forward.
Cool. Okay. So Meta and Google, two channels that I heard there. And I think that content, the sort of have the daily olive oil shot feels like the perfect content for UGC or even influencers. Is there an influencer strategy at the brand? And if so, like how has that evolved over time?
Yeah, there definitely is. I think early on it was really about just finding influencers in the wellness space that we could partner with. And as kind of we dove into performance and, looked at the data, it became what are these influencers posting and why are certain ones working? Why are certain other ones not working? And so we kind of took this big idea of just wellness space. Let's partner with a ton and narrowed it down to specifically influencers who are talking about seed oils, specifically influencers who are talking about grocery store finds that are better for you, specifically influencers that are talking about easy recipes and creating recipe content has been a big one for us. So we've really kind of refined and pinpointed our specific influencers that work really well from like a really big idea. And now we have a pretty good idea where we can take a look at an influencer and think we're probably going to be moderately successful with this one. More than likely it won't flop is kind of where we've gotten to.
Okay, cool. I mean, that's a lot to do between all of those different channels and even the measurement for all of that. What does the team look like today? Like, are you a one person show, or do you have support?
No, thankfully we're not a one person show. We have a small team. We're very lean. It's myself as, kind of the growth expert. We have a CMO, Katie, who is fantastic. She's great. She leads all of us. We have somebody who helps out on affiliate and influencer. Her name is Alex. She's very smart. And then we have Sam, who works on organic social, as well as content creation, as well as UGC support.
Okay.
So it's a very small team of 4. And then we work with a handful of freelancers to kind of, any other tasks. Like we work with an email freelancer named Johnny, who's fantastic, incredibly smart. Lean on him for a lot of reports. But yeah, it's a pretty small team.
Okay. So, but no agencies in there. So it sounds like, you're doing a lot of it in-house, and then you're augmenting the team with a trusted network of freelancers. Have you always taken that approach, or have you, I'm just curious. We brought up agencies at the outset of the call. Mm-hmm. Burned by them, open to working with them again, all of the above.
Yeah. So Kosterina was working with an agency before I came on. They were doing all of their paid efforts. We work with an agency on the Amazon side of things. Yeah. Nexus Group, who we really like. They've been great to us. I think the way that I've kind of heard about it, and I wasn't here for the experience, but the way that I've kind of heard about it is a lot of metrics seemed inflated and there wasn't a whole lot of education on the back end. And I think you and I both know, working in paid, you can inflate a ROAS number pretty dramatically, and the back end revenue is not increasing. And I think there was a lot of that going on, which unfortunately, I think a lot of brands see with agencies. I think agencies are fantastic. I think the wealth of knowledge that is held at agencies is great. I think brands need to do their due diligence and find good agencies to work with, ones that actually increase revenue as opposed to increase ROAS.
Okay. What would be on your diligence list? So you're writing a diligence list to help brands find the right agencies. What's on that list?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, understanding marketing metrics like MER or a tacos metric. I think one would be important is if they're in your Shopify backend and they're seeing your storefront revenue. That's a huge one. If they do both Meta and Google, I'm not a huge fan of segmenting those two channels in separate agencies. I think that they should always be aligned and the strategy should be aligned. So those are two huge ones that I would really want to know about. And then I would like to get into kind of their channel strategy. Do they optimize for new customers? Do they understand new customer metrics in both channels? Do they, what does their branded search look like on Google? It's easy to sit on a 3x on Google when your branded search is 80% of the spend. And I'm a branded search guy. I think branded search is important, but what does that all mean holistically to your entire marketing strategy? So those are kind of the due diligence ones that I would kind of launch off and have conversations with. I was talking to a marketing friend the other day, and he brought up that, agencies and AI companies that are coming out with all of these different, marketing tools, they hate talking to guys like us. They hate it because it's tough to sell to you or I, because we've been in the channels, we've been in the platforms, we understand it, we get it. And so when something doesn't quite click, it's like, well, what do you mean by that? What is that? Like, let's dive into that. And it's just really difficult. And then the other thing is I I don't really want a super flashy agency. I don't want one that sells us and talks about another client hitting a 13x ROAS. In my mind, that's not real. That's unrealistic. Don't put that in your clients' heads. So yeah, that was kind of a long answer, but
I know, I love that. I mean, I think that's great advice for brands, but I think it's also great for agencies that are listening. It's like, how do you underpromise and overdeliver, and how do we align our incentives too? I think I like to say that anyone can get rich with a bottle of wine and a spreadsheet. And so, like, I'm going to model this ROAS, and you're like, we're going to spend all this money, and our brand is going to go like this. And more often than not, that just doesn't happen. That's not the case. But if we think about telling the right story and reaching out to the right people and looking at the right metrics and working together and being curious, you can grow in these times. So I love that diligence list. I think that's super thoughtful. We did talk an awful lot about metrics and measurement. And I think sometimes agencies show up with their own way of measuring or their own data. I have tended to see brands be more successful when they're in control of those numbers. And so there is a place that they can go to and they can point to, and they mostly believe what they're being told. It's difficult when you have to rely on the different platforms because their incentives aren't aligned with yours. They're incentivized to tell you that they're driving all of your revenue. But when you add all those up, it doesn't really always equal what's in the bank account. So as someone who is as metrics focused as you are, what are you using for measurement within the company? And we'd love to just unpack the MarTech stack if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Kosterina, we use Triple Whale. Triple Whale is kind of our source of truth. I don't think a lot of brands need Triple Whale or an attribution solution. I think what they need is to understand channel metrics and how to read channel metrics without being lazy. So I came from the agency side, and I had a previous client of mine reach out, and they were like, I just don't like what's happening. We're not seeing our revenue increase, but our ROAS looks really great. Can you just audit our account? Please just audit our account because something just doesn't feel right. And I really like this company. And I was like, yeah, not a problem. Let me take a look at it. I spent probably like 2 hours in their Meta and their Google account, and very, very quickly found out that like 85% of their Meta attributed revenue is all view through. None of it's click based. 75% of their Google revenue came through on the brand search. And then they also had branded search terms included in their Performance Max and their shopping campaigns. And those were like their top 6 or 7 keywords for all campaigns. Yeah. And so really early on, it's, you're kind of seeing like, well, that's why your revenue is not increasing. You're looking at a 12x ROAS reported, but your revenue has stayed stagnant. It's not increasing. And so I think a lot of brands, if you're not going to use an attribution solution like Polar Analytics or Triple Whale or Northbeam, there's a handful out there. It's just understanding what the channel is reporting to you, how to interpret it, and how to optimize off of it. If I'm that brand, I'm optimizing off of our click data. I probably still have the 1-day view in our campaigns because they're not spending a lot. So I want those events so that the algorithm can learn. But I'm going to optimize off of the click-based data, and I'm going to optimize off of a new customer segment. And so that's where I would go. But for Kosterina, we use Triple Whale and we trust it. We think that the attribution is mostly accurate, at least accurate enough to be a North Star for us. Okay, directionally accurate. Just curious, like, are you looking at multiple attribution models? Like, do you linear or multi-touch or last click, you sort of put them all together and then decide like what's actually working? Or is it you're just sort of fixated on one? No, we kind of put them all together. So we start with like either a total attribution, like their AI model that based off of a post-purchase survey. We take a look at that one. From the business side, holistically, we typically like to take a look at linear. Yeah. And then for channel optimizations, we'll dive into triple attribution and views to make our individual optimizations inside of the channel. Most of that is because we do spend pretty heavily on social and knowing that we're in store. I do think there's a heavy value to our views on social for a brand like Kosterina. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so that's a great segue into you are not exclusively selling online, but you have an awful lot of first-party data. So D2C or direct-to-consumer is a big part of the business.
How has the wholesale expansion gone? How important has that been to the overall brand growth? And if there was a kind of a perfect mix for you in terms of revenue, blended revenue between those channels, what would it be, or what are you driving towards?
Yeah, this year it's been pretty significant. We launched in Target towards the end of 2024. We've been in there for almost a full year.
Congrats.
We're getting a handful of more products in there. Appreciate it. So it's been really good. I think the biggest difference between like D2C and retail is retail just has like a true top of funnel initiative that D2C kind of does, but kind of doesn't, because everybody likes to optimize for purchases and for conversions.
Yeah.
Whereas you can't necessarily do that in the retail space. So a few things that we have done to kind of like drive our retail sales is we've worked with an agency called Hummingbirds. They work with micro influencers. They're great. The content is fantastic. Their team is fantastic. And we've pushed out specific markets and then taken a look at the store data in those specific markets to see if there is a lift in velocity prior to the influencers going live and post. So that's been huge. In a perfect world, I'd like to say right now we're like a 50-50 split. I'd like to see us wholesale grow, because even though the margins are a little bit worse on wholesale, they're always going to be. You don't spend the same amount of money trying to acquire a wholesale customer. You have that shelf space. So I would like to see our wholesale kind of grow to like a 60-65% of the overall revenue.
Do any of the D2C numbers help in those conversations with folks like Target? We're able to say, yeah, okay, we understand this much about our customer and we understand this much about yours, and this is why we should be on your shelves versus someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And what has also helped dramatically is understanding our D2C personas. So we build creative off of specific personas, and implementing those personas into our retail strategy when we're looking for influencers to partner with, or, that's kind of how we think about that influencer strategy to drive, target velocity or wholesale velocity is we use these specific personas to find influencers that match up and speak to those audiences.
Cool. Is there a retail shelf that you're not on in 2025 that you're hoping to be on in 2026?
Ooh, good question.
You're on some good ones already.
Yeah, we're on some good ones already. What I would like is, and this is kind of like a politician answer, I guess, but what I would
totally fine. We like politicians.
Is us owning more space on those shelves is really what I would like to see. I don't necessarily have like a picture perfect retailer, but I would like for us to see, we have olive oils, we have vinegars, we have olives, we have crushed fruit vinegars, we have full pantry staples. I would like to see us have full pantry shelves in retail to say, what are you looking for? You can find it all right here.
Yeah, that's an awesome answer. And that's the power of brand, I think. It's like, I tried this product from this brand and I really liked it. And then I saw some of their content and I really like what they're saying and what they stand for. And so the next time I see them in another, maybe a category expansion, I'm like, of course I'm going to try this thing. Like, I love that. And I think I wish brands did more of that. It's like the brand storytelling and the brand building, because that's how you grow. Whether it's, it's that the idea of share of wallet or expanding on the shelf as opposed to just expanding the doors that you're in, I think is super thoughtful. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one thing that we've noticed is, you're always going to take it. If this retailer calls and says, hey, we want you in our stores, you're always going to take it. But you also have to be in a position where you're ready to be in that retailer, because if you jump off early and your velocity is not there, getting back into that retailer years later is significantly more difficult.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of brands should take a look at, when, a Target calls and ask themselves, do we have the packaging? Do we have the messaging? Do we have the brand awareness to actually drive velocity? Or are we going to be spending a significant portion of our marketing budget building that brand awareness so that we can drive velocity in store?
Cool. I love that. I'm just trying to look at my list of questions here, but before maybe we get to the fun stuff, You brought up branded search, and I think we've made it 29 minutes and 34 seconds. We haven't talked about AI, but I'm going to take us there now. There's very little, I think, in the MarTech landscape that is changing as fast as search is because of sort of Gen AI. And had a look at some of the pages. I think they're beautiful. I think that the copy is fantastic. How are you thinking about where the role that AI is going to play as you sort of shift your focus away from just branded search to optimizing for agents that are increasingly going to be bubbling your results up to the surface, and ideally to that AI summary?
Yeah, great question. I think first it starts with, I kind of think SEO is having a revival. For the past few years, it's a lot of brands have moved away from SEO and been like, it doesn't really matter. It can be like an afterthought. You should do it, but whatever. And I think a lot of it is having a revival because of these AI platforms that, go out and crawl your sites. And so really the way that we think about it is we want to write content that is being discovered by AI and being understood by AI, so that when, somebody plugs into ChatGPT, what is the best olive oil out there, our platform is coming forward. That's a big one. And then we're really big on betas. I have to imagine at some point Google is going to launch an AI specific campaign that they can capitalize on.
Yeah.
They definitely will. I know that they've launched an AI search beta that plays in that space a little bit, but not quite 100%. And so, when that is launched, we'll get on there and figure that out and optimize those campaigns to the best of our ability that we can. But that's really where I think it starts right now is getting back to writing content and developing content that is discoverable by AI agents and can be crawled and then can be brought up in the queries that people are asking for on some of these platforms.
Cool. Have you been surprised so far at the amount of traffic coming from these AI searches?
Yeah, definitely. We kicked up Triple Whale a while back, and I'm looking at revenue by channel at the end of the month, and we've got like $3,500 from ChatGPT.
And where did that come from? You're like,
yeah,
thank
exactly.
You. Yeah.
I'm not on ChatGPT. Like, where does this? And so, the way that I work, I'm like, all right, which UTM did we mess up where we accidentally like copied something over or something? Yeah. And no, it's actually, coming in from people doing searches on ChatGPT and figuring out, healthy products and that's the route that everyone's going. Like that's, it's easy to find a lot of information and get your question answered very quickly. So, we have to be in that space and every brand has to be in that space.
Cool. So the back half of this year, there are investments from you and the team into that to optimize for that, or it's just going to happen organically? How are you approaching that?
Yeah, there definitely is. We've kind of launched off a pretty thorough search for the tools and the platforms that make the most sense for us. I think small brands like us, we're kind of at a disadvantage when it comes to AI because all of us are across so many different initiatives and our bandwidth is limited. So it's tough for us to, spend a month diving into this tool and this tool and this tool and this tool and then deciding which one is right. Whereas for a lot of brands, they're bringing people on for the next 8 months to say, test out all of these AI tools, tell us which ones we should have, and then implement them. And so really we've launched off a pretty aggressive in our own small teams of what AI tools are out there for your specific responsibilities and do you want to recommend them? Do you want to get a trial? Do you want to bring them on? And so we have launched a pretty thorough research, and one of those things is finding a content blog AI tool that writes SEO that's specifically discoverable for AI. There's a handful of tools out there. We haven't launched on one yet, but I have to imagine by beginning of September, middle of September, we probably will.
Yeah. I mean, I think the tools are going to help. I also think content helps a ton and like authentic reviews help a ton. And it's, I remember early days of SEO, being able to kind of figure out the algorithm and then scrambling when it would change. But like once you figured it out, you were good for a little while. I think what's tricky here, And what actually I appreciate, because I think it goes back to the roots of like just authenticity, is that the results are never going to be the same. The way that a certain model is going to interpret your content, and even the search that the customer on the other end entered, it's going to be really difficult to predict. So it's sort of like, yeah, we got to put high quality content out there. There are no tricks. We need to get great reviews. We need to feed these LLMs with information to help them make better decisions. In the same way that you're thinking about what's the information to help our customers make a better decision. And so I think it's a little bit more aligned there. I never liked stuffing a bunch of keywords into hidden tags and having a bunch of backlinks. That never really felt like I was doing anything to help the customer. It was more to sort of trick the algorithm. But what I do like about this conversion is it seems like the better job we do trying to attract customers, the harder that content might work for the LLMs. But I think it's still early innings, and we're going to continue to see. But that's sort of helpful for me to understand just how you're thinking generally about the landscape for AI. So small team, understand the benefits there, sort of giving people time and space to experiment, and then maybe share those results back within the organization. That seems pretty cool.
Exactly. So
cool.
And I mean, it's only a matter of time before these, ChatGPT starts advertising inside of ChatGPT, and some of these other ones start advertising inside of them. I have to imagine you're going to start seeing ads, early 2026, mid 2026 within these language models.
Oh man, pay to play within the large language models. Like, geez, like that's going to be something. But I think, you're probably right. I mean, the history has shown, when you look at just how Google has grown, and Facebook as well, like it's a massive opportunity to make money. And, despite OpenAI's mission, I think we've seen their capitalist instincts. So yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. We'll see. I work in marketing, but I'm like, I don't want to see any more advertisements. If I never see another one, I'd be happy. But I just think that's probably the route that it goes, because if you can make money, why not?
Yeah. It's just the thing, like I work in adjacent to marketing, mostly in marketing technology, and, trying to give brands better data so that they can ultimately connect with their customer. But I love a good ad, and what I don't like is when I get followed around the internet and I feel like I'm sort of like bludgeoned into making a purchase. Like, no, thank you. But a great creative, great copy, a great ad. Like, I appreciate brands that are sort of going out there and trying to do that. And I'd love to give them better data to be able to create better ads. I mean, it's content at the end of the day. And,
right.
And I think that's going to help sort of elevate those brands into the category of iconic, bringing it back to ultimately how I kicked us off. But this has been great. I think we've covered an awful lot here. You said you weren't a veteran of marketing podcasts, but sports podcasts, perhaps. Your next podcast, are you talking about sports? Are you talking about marketing? What do you prefer to do?
Yeah, most likely I'll be talking about marketing. I will be talking about sports probably this weekend, hopefully with a beer, now that the NFL season has kicked off.
There we go.
Preseason. Yeah. So I'm sure at some point, me and my wife are going to Hawaii early September. And I'm a huge Packer fan. I don't know if you can tell.
Yeah. At Wisconsin.
Right. But the second day that we're in Hawaii, the Packers play at like 10 a.m. And I was like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to be watching it.
Yeah. I'm a huge hockey fan. I'm a Montrealer. And one of the benefits of moving to the West Coast has been the games are on earlier. So it's like at 4:00, Montreal Canadiens are playing. And more often than not, I'm either listening to them on the radio or trying to catch the second or third period. But I mean, you're going to do great on marketing podcasts. This was a ton of fun. Sam, thanks for joining me. Thanks for sharing some of that knowledge that you've accumulated along the way. I think the listeners are definitely going to benefit from it. And I'd love to have you back. This conversation's been great. So thanks again.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Brian. It's been a pleasure. My pleasure. Absolutely. I appreciate you guys reaching out, and I appreciate what you're doing. I think, it's really beneficial to a lot of brands and a lot of early marketers being able to have a spot like this to learn and digest information.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Go Packers.
Appreciate you.